Welcome back to the Boneyard podcast, everybody. This is your host, Jared Shefford, along with my good friend.
Artemis Brown.
We're coming to you this week with episode 214. 214. Artemis,
You.
how we doing, my friend?
We're good, man. We're alive. We're in good health. We're in good spirits. We're good. I can't complain at all, man. Everything is everything. I don't have to be in the office this week, so I'm just waking up when I want to, getting online, servicing my people, working from the crib. It's nice. It's nice. I'm appreciative of these weeks now.
For sure. And I see that you're wearing your Smashing Pumpkins t-shirt. So
Absolutely.
you're
Shout out,
you're
Shot Town.
on you're on you're in season, right? I mean, Smashing Pumpkins anytime, but especially during spooky season. Artie, number 14. Do you have a number 14 for me?
Of course, I have number 14. I'd be remiss if I didn't say this name. I don't know if this is the same 14 you have, but I feel like I got to say this guy's name. We've brought him up a couple of times here on the podcast, but he did unfortunately just pass away. And I feel like I do got to say the name. So that's one Pete Rose, who wore the number 14. Should be in the hall, is not in the hall. Obviously, there's a whole debate that can be had about why he should be in the hall, why he shouldn't be in the hall. Obviously, we all know the gambling situation that happened there. But yeah, I mean, I think he has the most hits, right? Most hits in MLB history. I'm pretty sure. Was just consistent throughout his career. Had a long 15 to 20 year career, and absolutely should be, just based off of his merits, should be in the Hall of Fame. So wanted to shout out Pete Rose there at 14. I know he wore that number for the Cincinnati Reds, and quite the character too. I remember Pete Rose from watching him when he made those like appearances on WWE. I don't know if you ever saw that, but when Pete Rose would be on WWE, like back in the day, that's how I got my introduction to Pete Rose. I never even knew he was a baseball player until I saw him on WWE, and then I figured out his.
Didn't he used to hang out with like Roddy Piper?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
So that was my introduction to
the
Pete
old
Rose.
heads know.
The real ones know. The real WWE heads know. But that was my introduction to him. But shout out to Pete Rose. God rest his soul. My 14 for the week.
Yeah, he should have. It sucks that he's not in the Hall of Fame. He should be in the Hall of Fame. I get it, but especially now in today's day and age where gambling on sports and being an athlete, it's not, they're not getting the bans that Pete Rose got. I mean, you look at a guy like Calvin Ridley. We all know the whole thing with Shohei Ohtani earlier this year. I think he did it. I don't think it was his interpreter. Yeah. I think it was him. There's some other ones. Shane Pinto from the NHL last year, even though his was a little bit different. He wasn't gambling on hockey. He was gambling on he was basically having somebody like a proxy bet for him log into his account while in New York and place a bet for him, which is against the law. You can't do that. Please bet responsibly. But yeah, that's, I don't know. I hate that Pete Rose never got to go to Cooperstown and do his thing.
Yeah. Yep.
And we're gonna see it more, and I think that the gambling is far less egregious than the steroid use, especially in baseball. So when we get there, and I think we're eventually going to have a Hall of Fame that has Alex Rodriguez and Barry Bonds in it, but they haven't gotten the blowback as much as Pete Rose did, right? And Pete Rose had to deal with that for 30 years, right? 30, 40 years. I can't even remember when, like, I don't know when he stopped playing or when he got banned, but it's just it sucks. It sucks that Pete Rose didn't get to have that. The Hall of Fame is an accomplishment that you get to look back and celebrate your career.
Right, exactly.
And not having that, and I'm sure that he'll go in and his family will be there. If I was his family, I wouldn't go.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, I'm pretty sure they'll probably somewhere down the line have a posthumous, ceremony for him where he does get in. But I agree.
Vocabulary word of the day.
There was you said what?
Vocabulary word of the day. Wow.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hey, look, man, that East Carolina education now. Stop playing.
Hey.
But yeah, I agree, Joe. I think his family shouldn't show up because they had plenty of time to make sure he got into the hall. So
exactly. All right, mine. And I didn't go back and look at last time we got to 14. But I'm guessing this was probably the same guy. None other than Atlanta Falcons legend, East Carolina University legend, Justin Hardy.
good one.
Number 14 for the Atlanta Falcons. Average 10 yards receiving in the NFL. I actually talked about Justin today. For those of you that don't know, my company's headquartered in Canada. And we were talking some CFL in one of my team meetings today. And I was talking about Justin Hardy being the GOAT. All right. That's my number 14. Already shout out to the College Huddle. Oh, Josh, you got one.
Yes, I do. I have one that I just cannot miss. I just cannot miss it. It is the Stuart Haas car number 14. As many people know, Stuart Haas is reducing their teams to only one car next year, the number 41. So the number 14 will not have a vehicle for the first time in a very long time. Very successful car. I mean, one of the best cars ever in terms of just consistency. Tony Stewart with 16 wins, Fonnie Flock 14 wins. Currently, Chase Briscoe's in the car, but you've had AJ Foyt, Clint Boyer has 2 wins in the 14. Like just goats all around. RIP to the 14.
RIP to the 14.
RIP.
I remember taking we took a field trip in high school to Stuart Haas. It was so random. Like we just took a field. It may have been in middle school, but we just went to Stuart Haas. Josh, fun story. Ryan Newman used to drive for Stuart Haas?
I don't think he drove for Stuart Haas. Him and Tony Stewart were pretty close though.
Okay, I thought I remembered him driving for.
He
Stuart
might
Haas.
have though.
I think he. I may be wrong, and if I am, this story doesn't matter. I grew up going to NASCAR all the time, and when Ryan Newman was coming up, so way before Stuart Haas was even a thing, I met him down on the track. I was like maybe 4 years old, 5 years old when my grandfather. We were at a practice, and I remember him like letting me sit in his car, like on the track. Like I think we were probably at Bristol, and it was really sick. I was a big fan of Blue's Clues back in that day, and
who wasn't?
And he was like, "Yeah, look, I got Blue in my car." I thought that was the coolest thing. I still remember it to this day. Ryan Newman.
Yes, he was with Stuart Haas, drove the 39. I knew that him and Tony Stewart were close. I didn't remember he was on the team though.
NASCAR casual. That's still a shot for you calling me a college football casual.
Jared's never gonna let that down. He's never gonna let that.
I love you, Josh. All right. Shout out to the College Huddle. Doing great things. We've had several College Huddle podcasts collabed. We're gonna have some more later on in the season, so stay tuned. But yeah, shout out. Lots of great things. We're starting to ramp up. We're bringing on basketball schools. College Huddle started as like a football college football podcast community. Now we're bringing in some Big East schools. Shout out, I don't think it's official yet, but Roll Blob, our boys over at Roll Blob already are hopefully joining the crew.
Nice.
So yeah, let's get into it. Just doing a quick dive into ECU athletics, especially since we missed last week. Women's soccer advances to 6-3-5, 3-2-2 on the season in conference. Ended up drawing with Memphis on the road. I believe that was the first time in like 25 games. Memphis had the longest home winning streak in the country, and until the Pirates rolled into the Music City and held them to a 1-1 draw. So shout out to the women's soccer team. They're tied for third place and just 4 points out of the lead in the conference, only behind Rice, Memphis, and USF. Only 4 points separate 5 teams from third to seventh in the conference.
Wow.
And then ECU will host the Blazers for Senior Day at Johnson Stadium at 1 o'clock on Sunday. So get out there. No ECU football at home this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Get out to Johnson Stadium
sports.
and pull on for these girls. Next, volleyball. Volleyball's 10-6 on the season, 3-3 in conference. Swept the homestand with wins over UTSA and North Texas. Then they went on the road to Tulane and Rice, but couldn't pull off the road wins to stay at top of the conference. Pirates have another weekend homestand to climb back up the leaderboard. Friday night, they'll play the 8-11 Temple Owls, and then on Sunday at noon, they'll play Wichita State, who is 9-9 and 4-2 on the season in conference. So yeah, shout out ladies doing their thing out there.
Both looking pretty good. They still have everything out in front of them, especially volleyball. Good chance to get to 12-6 over the weekend. So absolutely, go support these ladies.
Get out there. Get out to Minji's. Get out to Johnson Stadium, and let's watch some ECU dubs. Shout out Izzy Marinelli, friend of the podcast, best friend of the podcast forever. I'll say we are the biggest Izzy stans here at the Boneyard podcast.
Absolutely, as we should be.
Real quick, Artie, before we go any further, did you see the thing about the Boise State beach volleyball player?
No. Mm-mm.
Josh, did you see this? He's shaking his head no. So, for one, I didn't know Boise State had a beach volleyball team.
Fair.
Kind of wild, right? Secondly, they have a goth girl that plays beach volleyball for them.
You should have a golf girl?
Yeah.
I have seen this. I have.
Yeah.
I have. Yeah. I'm lost. Somebody explain.
Artie, look, and no shame.
Okay. Here's what I'll do. Artie, prepare for an experience. You ready? So we're just gonna go through the roster here. Okay. Shout out to all the ladies, right?
If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, you're gonna want to go watch this on YouTube or TikTok, wherever you want to find it.
You know, typical what you would expect to see when you hear
you're not showing
volleyball.
Here,
am I not showing it?
Screen.
Oh, add it to the studio. Sorry. Oh, sorry. There we go. All right, back to the top. You know, your typical beach volleyball in Boise, Idaho, right?
Mm-hmm.
Typical. Keep your eyes open. Not going to miss it. Hey, self-expression.
Hey, I'm all for it.
We are a very inclusive podcast here at the Boneyard Podcast. We allow everyone to express themselves the way they want to express themselves. Just throw that caveat out there. Okay.
She's taller than you, Artie.
That's
They don't say much.
It's not saying much, but congratulations.
What's her NIL exchange look like? What she got going on?
Let's see. Nothing.
She needs to get a deal with like Hot Topic or something.
Yeah. Spencer's Hot Topic.
Yeah, Spencer's Hot Topic, one of them. Absolutely. My goodness. Okay. Hey, look. That's just the way of the world in 2024. Just what it is.
Hey, I'm all for it. Once again, I had no idea that Boise State had a beach volleyball team.
And why would they? It's Boise. Boise, Idaho. You got to take a flight to get to a beach from Boise, Idaho.
So I don't know why. I meant to bring that up a couple weeks ago when it was making its rounds on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I thought that was wild. We need it. How does ECU not have a beach volleyball team? Hell, at this point, get rid of the football team and take up beach volleyball.
Yeah, no, honestly, if you're being honest, though, because I mean, what, an hour and a half from nearest beach? Probably should have a beach volleyball team.
I think
beach volleyball is not actually, pertaining to being near a beach, but still.
I think it's more of a Pac-12 or Pac-2 thing. I think some of the ACC schools have it, probably some SEC schools, but I don't think you're going to find any beach volleyball up in the Northeast or really like the Midwest until you get to like Boise.
Yeah, no, nobody cares about beach volleyball in the Midwest. They're not doing that in Iowa and Ohio.
They've never even seen a beach.
And Nebraska. They're just not doing that there.
I've never seen a beach. All right. Well, now that we got our giggles out, let's transition. Let's talk about ECU at Charlotte just 2 weeks ago. We wanted to record last week and give our initial thoughts, but unfortunately, I was sick. Already didn't have a laptop charger. We just couldn't make it happen. But already just off the top, ECU loses 55. What was it? 55-24. Just your initial thoughts on the game.
Yeah, well, I feel like a jackass because I call for ECU blowout. I
did too.
That's what I called on the podcast.
That was our first ever lock of the week.
Lock, like lock, like ECU's go beat the shit out Charlotte. Nope, didn't happen. So I feel like a jackass for that. Secondly, just first initial thoughts. There's a lot of blame to go around. This is one of those games where there really is just a lot of blame. Everybody just kind of shit the bed. It's called a spade. Everybody from an effort standpoint on the player side of the ball, right, to a coaching standpoint, to a leadership standpoint, which is why you had to have a players only meeting that we'll get into later here on the podcast. Just a lackluster effort from a team that had a real shot to put themselves in an excellent position, in a position where you probably have to be at 4-2 going into Army. We all know what Army is. We all know Army's 6-0. We all know that Army's very, very good right now. And so to go into that game at 3-3 and not 4-2 really sets you behind the 8 ball and really could set you up for a failure of a season when you don't really take care of what you're supposed to take care of. Now, I'm not trying to disrespect Charlotte. Charlotte came out there. They ran their game plan. They did what they had to do. They got plenty of talent. It's not like Charlotte doesn't have talent on that side of the ball. They have plenty of talent. They went out there in the portal and got plenty of dudes. But the body of work that Charlotte had put together to that point, right? And knowing that we probably are the better team when we play our best football and Charlotte plays their best football, ECU should still win that matchup. That's how disappointing that game was to me. because to me, I felt like, okay, we still have the better talent, the better team, and we just got outclassed, we got outcoached, and everybody on Twitter wants to talk about the coaching. Coaching deserves a lot. But from what I saw, because I was on the sideline for that game, not just in the press box, I saw a lack of effort. Effort can't be coached. You cannot coach effort. Effort is something that the players just got to go out there and do. You just got to go out there and want it. Letting Charlotte score 55 on you, that's a lack of effort. Charlotte beating you is one thing. Letting them blow you out is a lack of effort. So to me, this was a complete shit to bed from everybody, if you want me to be honest.
Yeah, I would agree. And it just seemed like there wasn't much will left to give. But by the end of that game, it felt like ECU had its soul ripped out, stomped on, thrown in the mud, picked back up, hit with a baseball bat, thrown in the trash, and burned. That's how it felt. Like, at one point, I remember just thinking, man, I wish this thing was over. It was over.
I was like, at halftime. It's like,
and I still had some hope at halftime. I'll be honest. I still had some hope at halftime, but you're starting to, I'm kind of foggy on the drives now. This is why I wish we did it last week. But I mean, at one point you're driving down the field, and once again, you just can't. You can't get the plays to get in the end zone or to put points on the board, and it just seemed like there was. And I kind of got the sense already, like we've been to enough of these games now where we're on the sideline pregame and you can kind of sense when guys are juiced up and excited to be there. I didn't get that from the minute they were there during warmups. Nobody looked like they were ready to go out and fight.
Yeah.
Not one single player on the team looked like they were ready to give a fight.
And maybe they thought they weren't going to have to put up much of a fight. But boy, were they wrong. Because Charlotte came out and definitely took the fight to them. I mean, it like even from the opening kickoff, like that opening kickoff where they took it back, I think it was like 30, 40 yards.
They took it back to like the 41-yard line.
Yeah, and I was like, my goodness, like what is going on? And then they go up 14-0. And then when we got it to 14-10, I will say, when we got it to 14-10, I said, okay, we're settled. We've settled into this game. We're calmed down. This is going to be an ECU victory. We're going to make sure our defense is going to do what they got to do. Our offense is going to make enough plays. I really felt from that point on we would dominate the game, and boy was I wrong, because we barely scored another point after that. So,
yeah, I think ECU really missed Zakai Barker on defense. Look, ECU had only allowed 3 rushing touchdowns all year. Charlotte had 6. Charlotte hadn't scored more than 30 points all year. They put up 55 on ECU. We always talk about the strength of this team is the defense, especially the rush defense, and then they just absolutely got dominated by Charlotte. Mm-hmm. Now, I'll say this. Charlotte is much bigger up front, across the board, both sides of the ball. They are. But so was UTSA, and ECU handled UTSA. So I think missing Zakai really, really hurt. Also, it seemed like there was a lot of undisciplined plays. Like, it just seemed like they weren't there mentally.
Right.
And you could just tell it like all game. And even like pregame, like it didn't seem like the coaches were there mentally. Like it seemed like nobody wanted to be in Charlotte. And it was embarrassing. That was an embarrassing loss. I should say another embarrassing loss with Mike Houston at the helm. Just another embarrassing loss.
And these are the things that you can't have, because now when you get to the coaching aspect of it, right, a lack of effort you can put on the players, right, but not having them prepared enough or mentally ready, or that type of, hey, like, we got to do something to get these guys motivated, get them ready, get them amped up. We got to come in here and take care of business. Like you mentioned, it also seemed like the coaches didn't want to be in Charlotte. Like, they weren't ready for this game. Like, they weren't really mentally prepared for the game. And in year 6 under Houston, losing is one thing, but getting embarrassed to a team that's under 500 at this point in your tenure, yes, I have every right to sit here and say this shit should not happen. It should never happen. I'm okay with a competitive loss. That's an uncompetitive loss, and I'm not okay with that. And at this point in your tenure, we have to call this out. It's got to be something that's addressed. Losing to a ranked team is one thing. If we're going into Army and losing a competitive game against Army this weekend, okay, that's one thing. Losing to Charlotte the way we lost to Charlotte, at this point, no. That we have to. This is something that has to be addressed. It does.
What do you say to all the fans that are calling for Mike Houston's head?
What do I say to him? I don't even have, like.
I'll say this. Artie at one point looked at me and said, "I want Mike Houston's head on a platter served up to me for dinner."
And I've never said that.
Never. I've always been the one to say that
about Mike, because I really do, like, I'm a glass half full kind of guy, and I want to give somebody the benefit of the doubt to be able to build a program. But at this point, we're at that stage, right? And I am a realistic person who is okay with the growing pains of trying to build something consistent, and I'm okay with the growing pains of losing to a really competitive team, or a really good team. But that loss, the way we looked on that Saturday against Charlotte, yeah, that was the first time I'm like, okay, I don't know if Mike has really established a culture in Greenville, and he's been here for over a half a decade. Like, what is going on? This should not be happening. This should not be happening.
And the problem is, y'all, as much as everybody wants him gone, I don't think that ECU can do it. Not right now.
I agree with that. I do agree.
I don't think that ECU is in a place to not only fire him and buy his contract out, but hire a coach after you've just given your coordinators extensions, have to hire a coach that fits in with those coordinators who are, I mean, on offense, I'll say it's hard to find somebody like that right now that's going to come in and be able to mesh well with him. So then you're now looking at probably a second buyout and revamping the offense again, at least. And I don't know. I don't know what ECU does. I think what eventually will happen is, now ECU goes 5-7 this year, somehow, some way. I think ECU finds the money somewhere. I think some donor finally steps up and says, "Okay, we've already put all our money into the indoor practice facility, into NIL. Here's the money. Fire this guy and go get somebody that knows what the fuck they're doing." Because right now, like I'm tired of hearing already about how good we looked in practice.
We're right there. We're so close.
I'm tired of hearing about
getting close.
I'm tired of hearing about, man, our we should be singing the fight song right now. I'm tired of hearing that shit. I'm tired of, and I'll give Mike credit for this. For the first time in the 6 years that he's been at East Carolina University, he took he took a little bit of responsibility post game against Charlotte. He said it's on me. I'll give him that. But that was the first time in 6 years I believe I've heard those words come out of his mouth. And there's been plenty of times where it was on him.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm tired of the coach talk from Mike Houston. I'm tired of it. Get out there, do your damn job. The job that we pay you $2.3 or $2.4 million to do a year. We don't pay you $2.4 million a year to win 6 ball games.
well, he's not doing that.
Right. And he's got the talent. Now, but the only saving grace already is now that the Pirate Unite fund is, and it's not fully done, but it's pretty much done. Now that that's done, and we've got all the upgrades coming to the ECU athletic facilities. Now that that's done, start funneling money into the NIL. Start funneling money into the ECU athletics. So that way, when the time does come, we have the money to say, okay, money's not a restraint. We're not going to have to sit around and sit on our thumbs for another year to watch Mike Houston drink protein shakes and stand on the sideline. Sorry.
No, look.
Mike Houston's a great guy. I like Mike Houston. This is nothing against his character.
Right.
I've lost faith in his ability to be the head football coach at East Carolina University. I just don't think we can fire him.
But here's the thing too, and this is the last thing I'll say about it. When we came into this season, we understood that we went 2-10 last year. We understood we weren't going to be some world beater. We weren't winning, 11 or we weren't going undefeated, right? But you can't get 7 wins off this schedule, because if you can't get 7 wins at least off this schedule, I don't know what we need.
And I don't see a chicken's dick chance in hell that we win 7 games at this point.
But I mean, if you look at the schedule, and honestly, and if you look at the teams we've lost, I mean, App State kind of sucks. They're boo-boo right now, right? Liberty, flawed, right? Charlotte was Charlotte. So it's like when you look at the losses, and it's like, if we can't get 7 wins, and then you look at who you got coming up, right? You got Army and Navy, haven't lost a game. So that may be 2 guaranteed losses, right? So it's like, man, I just –
Florida Atlantic's on the come up.
Realistically, though, 7 wins absolutely should have been obtainable. 7 wins is not even asking for a lot.
7 wins
coming in.
7 wins was 7 wins was the perfect bar to set. And if you can't get to 7 wins with this schedule, this cakewalk of a schedule in year 6, you need to walk the damn plank.
Yeah.
I'll just call it like I see it. And then for the players to have to call a players only meeting, and one of the quotes that came out was, yeah, sometimes we just tune out the coaches. We don't, and I'm paraphrasing, we don't listen to the coaches. I get it. That happens when you're a kid. Look, you're getting NIL money. You're getting NIL money. This is your job. You got to listen to your boss. But at the same time, we've all at one point or another in our lives have worked for a boss that absolutely sucks. And okay, I don't want to work for them because they don't know what they're doing. And I'm just going to do my own thing. And I think, Artie, that is the point that we're at here at East Carolina. Nobody's bought in to Mike Houston, John David Baker. I think the defense is still in on Harrell, but I don't think that this team is bought in. And why would they be?
And that's the whole probably point of why you have a players only meeting, because you have your older guys, your veteran guys who may be actually bought into the program and what's going on, trying to let these younger guys know, hey, like, I understand that we're not where we want to be. I understand it maybe not make sense right now, but we do got to do something here, right? Like something's got to be done. Hopefully that's what was said. But it is alarming that when you have to have a players only meeting like that at this point in the season, because of what's going on with the play calling and the coaching. I'm not going to throw JDB in, but he just got here 2 minutes ago. But this really does fall on Houston.
Yeah. I don't know. JDB's losing me quick. He's losing me quick.
Yeah, there's some adjustments that need to be made there, especially the whole time of possession thing. It's ridiculous. It's getting to a point where it's detrimental now. But
so, all right, Artie. Real quick before we move to Army, we did get a question. Who's the starter? If I'm Mike Houston, John David Baker, I'm starting Jake Garcia. I think he gives you the best chance to win.
I agree. I think Jake Garcia absolutely gives you the best chance to win. To me, he didn't do enough to lose his starting spot at Charlotte.
Yeah, he was 6 for 8 with a touchdown and an interception. I get he had the interception. I don't know. I don't think that's you've ridden him this far. I don't think that's the place you pull him.
Well,
unless he's hurt.
Right. But he's your typical gunslinger quarterback. He's your Brett Favre style quarterback. He's going to make mistakes, but he's also going to make those plays where it's like, okay, yeah, he does put us in the best position to win, right? There's going to be times you're going to be scratching your head like, my God, why the hell did he make that throw? And then there's going to be times where like, man, that was incredible. I don't think Caden Hauser could have made that play like Garcia made that play. So, yeah, I agree. I think Garcia does put you in the best chance to win. I don't think he did enough to lose his position, nor do I think Caden Hauser did enough to keep the starting position. So,
for sure. All right. Enough about Charlotte. I don't want to think about it anymore. On to Army. Artie, we're going to bring in James from the Brigade Review podcast, also from As for Football. James, welcome to the Boneyard podcast. How are we doing, my friend?
Doing well, yeah. As for football, we got the Army football show.
Y'all got all the shows.
Yeah, we got a couple. You were on our roundtable podcast with me the other night. So,
yeah, man.
How you doing?
I'm good. I got it out of my system, James. I know you've been listening to us backstage for the last couple minutes. I got it out of my system.
You said on the podcast yesterday that you're a beer drinking guy who like to have some fun. So I poured myself some whiskey, and I'm nice. I hope you guys are ready to at least have a little bit of fun. I know it's
let it go, let it loose.
Hey,
cool.
Man, we got our shit out of the way. I don't have to talk about it anymore. But cool, man. Hey, if you're an Army football fan, you got to be really excited about what's going on up there in West Point this year. How are y'all feeling right now?
Good. I think cautiously optimistic is the right term.
Funny enough, that's the word we used to describe ECU's season before the season this year.
Before the season, I would have said, I don't know what to think yet, but I'm hopeful and excited for the season to start. Now I'd start to use the term cautiously optimistic. I'm not sure how much you guys know about what happened with our offense over the last few years, but like Navy, we're in our third coordinator in as many years on the offensive side of the ball. Ours was a little bit more self-induced. Navy had some offensive issues. Army decided to pivot away from our typical flex bone that you guys are used to Navy seeing against Navy. We went to a shotgun option last year, and now back this year to the traditional flex bone with some slight modifications. I think some learning points from last year. But we were not expecting to go this smoothly. We had our podcast earlier today. Obviously, Army's ranked now, and the question was posed, hey, is this just because Army's undefeated, or do you think they're actually the 23rd best team in the country? And I think the response was generally, hey, don't know yet, right? Haven't really been tested, but Army is beating the schools that we've been playing like you would expect a 23rd ranked team to beat them, right? If Michigan played Rice tomorrow, I'd expect them to win by about a margin that Army won by. The same goes for Illinois, some of those other teams. Now, is Army a top 10 team? No, a top 10 team would be beating those schools by an extra 30 points.
Or losing to Vanderbilt.
Or losing to Vanderbilt, yeah. But no, I mean, for the first time, Army was last ranked, not counting the weirdness of the COVID year. Army was last ranked in 2018. They finished the season on an 8-game winning streak. Got ranked towards the end, and they were 11-2. So it was just sort of like, okay, they were 11-2, but they won a lot of close games against some mediocre teams. They beat some FCS schools by 14 points. Like it was like, they're 11-2. You have to rank them. They're 11-2, right? This year feels a little bit different. It feels like they're actually performing in the way that they'd like to perform and executing in the way they'd like to execute.
Now, James, I do want to ask you, because you touched on offense, right? And it has been incredible. And you're right. The margin of victories that they put up, I think they scored over 40, 4 times this season. Could have been 5 easily. I think they scored 37 against FAU. What has led to this offensive explosion this season? And what is really built into that?
So I mean, first of all, I won't take point totals as a point of effectiveness on the offense, just because, I mean, our starting quarterback has been playing, 2.5 quarters every game, with the exception of FAU, right? FAU was the one close game we had. And I think the final score was 24-10 or something along those lines. There are some changes this year. So give you guys a little bit more history than you're asking for. The flexbone became less and less effective as the rules have changed. So there used to be cut blocking allowed. As long as it was head-on cut blocking, at any point on the field, you could cut block. You couldn't do it in the back, right? But you could do cut blocking. Through a series of rule changes, they've worked that back to basically the only way that you can cut block is if you are an offensive lineman, your initial push within a yard of line of scrimmage, you get to cut block. If you are a stationary back inside the tackle box that lines up, you're allowed to tackle cut block within that block. That's it. So no wide receivers chopping down DBs on the perimeter, no slot backs coming around and taking out a 220-pound linebacker because they get him at the knees, right? So that was a huge hit. That's why they went to the gun option last year. They pivoted away from the traditional flexbone. They thought like that would give them some opportunities. It didn't work. It didn't work as they expected it to. So now they've pivoted back to the traditional flexbone. But one of the big things that they've kept is the fact that their offensive linemen in the traditional flexbone 2022 and before were 285-pound linemen approximately. Some were a little bit heavier, some were a little bit lighter. Now that same offensive lineman is somewhere between 300 and 310 pounds. So they've kept that aspect. They're not cut blocking with those O linemen really. They're sort of doing a lot of zone blocking, a lot of pulling guards, things like that. But it's an extra 30 pounds that a linebacker has got to get to if he's going to push that mesh. So that's one big thing. Number 2, senior quarterback, never hurts. They have some playmakers for the perimeter. And then, third, they play with a lead. It's easy to be effective on offense when you're playing with house money, right? When you're playing from behind, it forces you to do things and call plays in a particular way sometimes. And the defense can key on that. Now there's not a lot of game tape on that this year because Army's one of 2 teams that hasn't trailed in a game yet, along with Indiana. But when you're playing with house money, it frees you up to try some things. You get to throw over the top. You get to make those safeties pay for playing 9 yards off the line. That certainly isn't nothing.
Yeah, I was watching part of that Army UAB game this past weekend, and it seemed like it just seemed like, okay, they lull you to sleep, and then you're selling out on the run because, hey, they're running the triple option, and then they dump it over the safety's head.
Yep.
That seems like and I've gone back and watched a couple different clips of Army from throughout this season, and it seems like that's the game plan. Lull you to sleep, and then, okay, if we don't throw it over your head, what we're going to do is we're just going to eat up time of possession and run it over you.
I wouldn't necessarily call it lulling to sleep. Like, I don't think it's hard. I mean, it's hard to use that term. I really do feel for the safeties and the DBs that we play against, because, I mean, they could be on and on every play, but it's not that they're lulling them to sleep. It's that when a defensive coordinator decides I'm putting 10 guys in the box, right? It was pretty funny against I was at the Tulsa game. Against Tulsa, the first play from scrimmage, I think there were 7 guys in the box. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, we'll run it. You think we got 6 yards on it? Second play, they got 4 yards on it, whatever it was, right? And they had 9 guys in the box. And then the third play of the drive, they put 10 guys in the box with 1 guy back. It's like, I mean, if you're going to beg us to throw, we'll throw, right? You're not necessarily lulling them to sleep. It's just like, hey man, if you're gonna stack the box with 10 players, you have to throw, right?
We're gonna take what you give me,
right? Exactly. So there's a little bit of that. There's also just a little bit of, I won't get too much into the triple option X's and O's, but man, when one guy is getting blocked by the same wide receiver or slot back every single play, right? He's getting blocked 4 yards down the line, and he's doing his damnedest to blow up that block so that you have instead of having one guy guarding 2 options, you have 2 guys guarding 2 options, and they can get a negative play. And that is his goal on every single freaking play, is to blow up that block. And then that slot back goes up like he's going to block, and he puts one hand on him and slips him. And he'll slip, and then all of a sudden he's got 10 yards on the guy. So that's – again, you call it falling asleep. Like, this guy's doing his job, right? He's playing assignment football. He's looking for how are you going to defend that? And then, people kind of, I've seen this going out on Twitter and other places, like, this is something new that Army's throwing this year. Army's done this forever. It's more effective this year for sure. I think part of that is the fact that a bigger O line gives you more time when you are throwing the ball. Number 2, our quarterback seems to have a little bit of touch on his throws, which hasn't happened in the past. It's been a significant amount of overthrows in previous years, where this year he seems to be able to locate the ball fairly well, at least well enough to hit open a wide open receiver. And then lastly, I think again, I don't know how much of it is playing with a lead and being able to call those plays at maybe unexpected times, or the fact that we just have a new kind of young offensive coordinator this year that's got a new mix in how he wants to do things. So I think all those things probably contribute to the ability to throw the ball more effectively, but it's nothing new. Maybe the particular plays are new, but there's nothing radically different about the scheme this year.
Yeah, I want to say one thing, and let me preface this by saying this is not a knock on Army or Navy whatsoever. I absolutely hate watching the triple option.
By the way, we love watching you guys watch your defense against the triple option.
And look, there's a reason. Every year, I can't remember a year that we didn't play Navy. Since, like, I mean, I'd have to go back and look to see if there was a year or what year that was. I don't remember a year where we didn't play Navy. And I think Josh, you can fact check me on this. I know we've only got 2 wins against them all time. And both of those wins came at Navy Memorial or Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium. I hate it. They're the first team to shut ECU out in like 20-something years, 23 years.
Yeah, did that last
year. And it's just, I hate it.
Even when we have extra time to prepare for Navy, they seem to kick our ass. Now we welcome Army. So
the American Athletic Conference hates us, and a lot of times they give Navy the bye before we get to play them. So,
Well, there was
Josh.
a back and forth a few years, I think, where you guys played Navy, where like road teams just kept winning.
Well,
Like neither you nor Navy could win against each other at home for like 4 years in a row.
well, we've only beat like I said, we've only beat them on the road. And the last win with it, what was that? 2022.
I think I was 22. With the walk off by
21.
Was that 21? Yeah, 2021. ECU won on a walk-off field goal.
That's right. I remember watching that. I was on watch.
I do have to say that the thing that always hurts my soul the worst is when the whole uniform debacle where we had to wear our whites and lost to them in double overtime at home.
Why did you guys have to wear your whites?
They were playing you guys the next week and wanted to make sure that everything was pristine.
Huh? I'm trying to think because they wear specialty uniforms for us.
Right.
I'm trying to think.
I don't remember. It was
or maybe it was Air Force or something. Yeah.
Yeah, something about their travel and they didn't want to go back
funny.
or something. So
well, against FAU this year, FAU. So I think road team gets to pick the uniform, and FAU asked Army because it was a September game. It was like going to be 100 and something with the humidity and all that real feel. And they asked us if they could wear whites at home. So Army was like, sure. And then the Army went black helmet, black shirt, black pants and beat them. So that was fun to watch. But I think our offense is a little tired by the end of that game.
And I want to go real quick, back to the 330-pound offensive lineman.
Well, not quite 330. We're talking like 300 to 310. But yeah.
Okay, 310. How is that in reg?
It's not so starting. Oh gosh, you're gonna don't take these years exactly because they're off.
Right.
But around 2003. All right. Navy started allowing an exception. It took took years after that at Air Force, and then even years later, it took till Monken. It was a condition of Monken showing up and taking the job that this finally came to West Point. There's a lot of things that Navy and Air Force did that Army refused to do for the longest time, which explains why Army was so bad for so long. In addition to the fact they stopped running the triple option for a while, that Monken made a condition of his hire, and one of those was that offensive linemen, or not just offensive linemen, all football players, and now I believe all athletes. There's basketball players aren't going to violate this, but maybe a rugby player or whatever. They do not have to make weight until they graduate. So a football player can be overweight while he's there. And then January rolls around, they play in the bowl game, and they, before, June, when they actually graduate, they got to slim down and make weight.
That sounds brutal.
It's really funny. There's a guy, Bryce Holland. It was in my company. He was our center during the 2018, the good years. And he was basically told, he was a December grad, but he had to play in the bowl game. And they said, you get to graduate as soon as you make weight. And I watched that man go from his playing weight down to 210, 225, 220, something like that. I mean, it took him like a month and a half. We called him Skinny Bryce because it was like it was a new person. It was crazy.
These linemen in general can slim down like it's nothing. Like it's crazy. And when
they just stop eating and stop working out, and all of a sudden they're how much work it is to be 305 pounds, right?
Right. You got
and playing. Yeah.
Right.
So I wanted to ask you, we all know what's going on the offense.
Mm-hmm.
We see it every year with Navy. It looks a little bit different with Army, of course, but let's talk about the other side of the ball.
Okay.
What's going on defense? How are they stack up against some of these offenses that they've played?
First of all, and we'll pivot to defense in 2 seconds. Just a heads up for later in the season, Navy is not running anything like I won't say it's nothing like you've seen them run. It's related, but it's going to look very different to the eye. So be prepared for that. Defense. So overall, right? So the reason that Army and Navy and Air Force run the triple option is because they can't recruit the same talent that other schools recruit.
Right.
So instead, they have a scheme that allows them to play above their talent level by using discipline and speed. So the defensive side of the ball is no different. They're not recruiting better defenders because they don't run the triple option on defense, right? They have a scheme that they've been employing since our current OC, Nate Woody, has been there, which is bend, don't break. You kind of hear that generally across college football, but to them, it's more than a general, hey, our stats kind of line up this way this year. It's an actual way that they play. You're going to see a lot of wideouts with 6 to 8 yards of space on Saturday. And Army's gamble is twofold. Number one, we're going to play it tight up front. We're not going to allow you to run the ball. We're going to give your wideouts some space, but we're not going to let you beat us deep. And if you do throw the ball, you're probably not throwing over the middle. You're probably throwing to the perimeter. So it might be an 8-yard gain, but you're throwing the ball 35 yards across the field to get it there. So that starts to really up the chance that play is a bust, is an incomplete pass. So one of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to have a busted run and an incomplete pass, and now you're 3rd and 8, and Army knows you're going to throw, and they can adjust to that a little bit better, and your drive ends. Or you're going to make it down the field slowly but surely with 8 to 12-yard passes, one per set of downs, and make it to the red zone. And then when you get to the red zone, those cornerbacks that are used to playing 8 yards off the wideout are going to play 3 yards off the wideout and play that tight coverage because they can't get beat deep anymore. So Army's got the number 1 red zone defense in the country. I think that's, again, helped by the fact that other teams go for it in the red zone a lot because they're trailing. But they have a very good red zone defense. And they don't get beat. The only times they've really gotten beat deep this year, save 1 or 2 exceptions, is at, towards the end of the game when the second and third strings are in. So they won't let you beat, they won't let you beat them deep, and they'll make you throw hard throws to the perimeter. One thing I know in our podcast earlier today, we talked about was, ECU is really good at these chunk 12 to 25 yard plays. They have more of them than I think I've seen in any other opponent over the last few years, save maybe Wake Forest when what's his face was the guy that went to Notre Dame, Hartman. Yeah, when we played Hartman. Save that
casual. No, that's a shot at our producer.
Yeah. But no, I mean, ECU does that a lot, and one of my keys for Army's defense was, hey, give them the 12 yards when they are going to make the hard throw. Don't give them the 20 to 25 yards. And we'll see how that works. I think if you see ECU's offense with a lot of 20 to 25 yard plays, it's going to be a good day for the Pirates offense. Doesn't mean it's going to be a great day for the Pirates defense, but I think you guys will be sound on that side of the ball if you can convert those.
No, I do want to ask if weaknesses, if any, that you've seen on either side of the ball, through these first 6 weeks, what would they be? And how is that something that can be exploited from what you've seen?
Our ability to sack the quarterback and get pressure on the quarterback kind of varies week to week, game plan to game plan. I couldn't tell you. Like, we had 0 sacks all season, and then we played Temple, and then they had 7 in one game by 7 different players, by the way. Like what the hell is that? So I don't know. Quarterback pressure, potentially. Again, they're going to have to make quick throws just because they're only going to have so much room before they run into both a corner and a safety. But probably quarterback pressures on defense. On offense, I can't think of, a weakness. I guess the point is you won't see the offensive weaknesses until they get put under pressure. And they've been playing with a lead, playing with house money. If I had to nitpick, our quarterback has a tendency to pitch the ball after he should. I think he's done it like 2 or 3 times this year where he's pitched the ball a little late. And luckily, one of the times the guy caught it anyway and actually picked up a first down against Tulsa. And then 2 times it got knocked out of bounds for, a fumble loss. that's nitpicking. You're talking about the guy who ran for 4 touchdowns and threw for another last week. So that's a small price to pay for a guy who's effective. But again, I'll watch him play with a deficit, and I'll get back to you.
That's fair. That's fair.
And this might be a really random question, just because it's been a trend at ECU, and then they tried to buck that trend at Charlotte. They started the season, first 5 games, ECU. Now, granted, you don't always win the toss, but the first 5 games of the year, they started on offense. They won the toss at Charlotte, decided to go on defense first, got scored on. Is that part of it too? Like,
I would be shocked. I couldn't tell you the stats of who won what toss. Typically, in games that Army plays in, the team that wins the toss takes the ball, and that is a huge part of it. I think Tulsa took the ball. I could be wrong about that. Maybe it was UAB that took the ball. It's happened multiple times this season, and this isn't the first year that it's happened. You don't want Army playing with house money on offense.
Exactly. Well, y'all haven't. If you haven't trailed all year, then that means they're stopping them on the first drive.
Right. Well, Army. So here's the stat for you. Save the second drive against Tulsa. So Army did not score on the second drive against Tulsa. Army has scored a touchdown on the first 2 drives of every game they've played in, with that exception.
That's the game right there. To be honest with you,
they're right, and that doesn't mean they're up by 2 scores after the first. Sometimes it's 14-7, right? But that Tulsa game, they Tulsa got the ball, went for it on 4th down around midfield. Army scored 3 plays later. Gave it to Tulsa. Tulsa scored. Army got the ball. Army didn't score. So now it's 7-7. They're both 2 drives in. Army stops Tulsa, gets the ball, scores, and then scores another touchdown before the half. So halftime's 21-7. So, yeah, they didn't score on the second drive, but by halftime, they were playing with house money. That's the key, is these games are either blowouts or not blowouts, typically based on how Army finishes the first half.
Yeah, well, I'll be honest, I don't have much confidence this weekend.
I will say, to give you guys maybe an inkling of hope, and this isn't to toy with you or anything, but this is the opponent that each one of us on the podcast today was most worried about that we've played this year. So
I mean, Army does have the 133rd ranked strength of schedule in the country out of 134.
They now again if you look at game control and
they beat who they beat the teams that they should.
Strength of record is a competitive strength of record, right? They're the number 1 game control team in the country. They're controlling the games better than any team would compared to a top 25 team, right? Here's where I think ECU lines up well in a couple of ways. So number 1, save the hurry up part. ECU moves the ball down the field in a way that is dangerous to Army's bend don't break scheme. That's number 1. Number 2, on defense, ECU seems to have a particularly strong defensive line. If you look at, and I'm not plugging this because I want people to go look at it, but in my preview this week, I looked at all of the teams Army has played, FBS teams Army's played, and their yards per carry allowed against non-triple option teams, because triple option teams skew that stat. If you look at the yards per carry against non-triple option teams, ECU is the best. Army exceeds the yards per carry on all of those teams by about 1.5 yards, 2 yards. But against the closest match was Rice. Rice gives up a few more yards per carry than ECU does, or not a few more, like tenths more than ECU does. And Army was at like 5.3, 5.4 yards per carry against Rice. So if ECU can hold Army to 5 yards a carry, they have a chance. They're giving their offense a chance. Now, I know they're not gonna change their offensive rhythm for one game, but if you wanted to beat Army, you have to slow down the offense. Army is going to run away with it in the fourth quarter if they have the ball for 45 minutes, which against ECU's offense is a real possibility. So this hurry up is great, but ECU is good at executing these medium length plays. Run the clock down to under 10 seconds on the play clock and execute the play. Don't sit here and just sling it, because if you do that, your drive's gonna end quicker than you thought, and now all of a sudden Army's answering a minute and a half drive with an 8-minute drive, right?
Touchdown.
Preaching to the choir.
So I'm not saying the hurry up can't work, but it's not going to work against Army.
No, I honestly couldn't have said it better myself. As far as this matchup this weekend, yeah, I couldn't have said it better.
No, yeah, we say it every year when we play Navy. We say, hey, you got to control time of possession. ECU hasn't controlled time of possession at all in any game this year. They just have. I'm guessing just by this is the eye test. I'm pretty confident if I went back and looked at the stats, ECU hasn't controlled time of possession. And not to say that you absolutely have to control time of possession, but you can't let Army have the ball for 40, 45 minutes. Charlotte 2 weeks ago had the ball for 41 minutes. It was absolutely insane.
So I think there's a couple things that are true. Number one, I mean, you have to imagine being in the Army fan base, the amount of times that I hear time of possession is just ridiculous. I mean, people think if you win time of possession, the scoreboard doesn't matter, right? So full stop, points per possession matters more than total possession for the game, right? At the same time, the reason that Army was able to bring Oklahoma to overtime as a top 5 team in the country in Norman in 2018 was because they had the ball for 42 minutes. Yep. So time of possession is an enabling factor for an offense that executes. Again, if Army if Army has the ball for 45 minutes and ECU has the ball for 15 minutes, but ECU scores 4 points per possession and Army scores 3 points per possession, ECU is going to win the ball game. But time of possession allows two things that are key. The first thing is it makes the opposing defense very tired towards the end of the game while yours is still fresh. So that's the big one to me. Number two is that skill players, and in particular quarterbacks and wide receivers, I think tend to get cold on the sideline. And if Army runs an 8-minute drive in the second quarter, and there's a minute and a half left, and ECU's like, we're not playing with this. We're going to knee out the half, and they knee out the half, and they go to halftime, and they come back out, and Army's got the ball to start the second half, and they run a 6-minute drive. You're talking about like an hour and 20 minutes of actual time where your wide receivers aren't running a route, right? And they get cold and they drop passes, and the quarterback throws the ball, underthrows the ball, and it gets picked off or whatever, right? Running backs are a little bit immune to that, I think, just because they are, it's not as the quick twitch on the legs isn't going to cost you a drive. The quick twitch on the arms will. So I don't think running backs matter as much, but particularly quarterbacks and wide receivers will get cold, and that's when time of possession can matter, but not as important as a tired defense in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, no. Like I already said, I couldn't say it better myself. I wholeheartedly agree. And that's been the problem this year, though, is a bunch of 3 and outs and not giving your defense enough time on the sideline to recoup. But also, you're going 3 and out with 2 incompletions and a 3-yard run. You're like, okay, well, you might as well have been standing on the sidelines anyways. You ran one route and you ran 30 yards downfield, but what'd you get from it?
Yeah, the other thing, and I mentioned kind of matchups earlier, right? The other thing that can help ECU out this week is the fact they have the bye, right? Coming off a bye, preparing for a triple option, super helpful. Get you 2 weeks. Now, I don't know what they did. I'm not in that locker room. I wasn't paying attention to anything ECU football until, there were zeros on the clock against UAB. Right. But if I'm Mike Bloomgren, I'm thinking Rice. If I'm what's Houston's first name? Mike. Okay, that's why I'm confusing him. Mike Houston. I am, like the first week, Yeah, I'm probably doing like it's a bye week, pads, a little bit of hitting, whatever. I'm doing walkthroughs with the scout team on the triple option, and I'm watching a shit ton of film, right? Like 70% of practice is film, and 20% is walkthroughs, and like 10% is padded, like hitting each other practice. And then on Saturday, we're sitting down with popcorn and a spread, and we're watching the Army game. And I'm letting my especially defensive players point out all the things that the other team is screwing up. And then this week, I'm getting into full contact practice, and I'm practicing what we've learned in film and what we've learned by watching the game on Saturday. Again, I don't know what they did.
Are you looking for a job?
I hear it pays like 2.3 million. So I do a lot of things for 2.3 million.
That part.
But that's what I'm doing to prep for Army with the bye week. That's not insignificant, right? UAB comes to Army after they had just played somebody. That's hard, right? Turning around, I got 5 days of practice effectively to prepare for an offense I see once a year, twice a year. ECU having an extra week matters.
No, I agree. And I don't think that they had popcorn. They honestly should have been eating beanie weenies for the last week after how they played in Charlotte. But no, it sounds like that was a lot of film study last week, and every practice is a good practice if you're Mike Houston. That's what he says. So I'm just a little bit salty.
And I think part of that too, I like, it's funny because it was one of the great things I love about our head coach, Jeff Munkin, right? Like in a loss, he sits there and he's like, yeah, coaches didn't call good plays. And he'll call out players, right? He'll say, we didn't execute, right? We called some bad plays, but he lets the coaching take the brunt of it. But in wins, like you talk to Coach Munkin, you think Army's 0-6. Like he lets his players have it in wins. It is hilarious. He's like, we were screwing things up left and right. The fact that we came out of here with 40 points is beyond me. Like
that's the mentality you want from your head ball coach, though. That's the mentality. I want a Nick Saban mentality. We didn't do anything right.
Oh, it is hilarious. I mean, these guys are like, I mean, I it's not serious. I put in my preview this week that the Bryson Daly Heisman odds have gone from that's funny to I'd throw $5 at that just in case. Like it's not serious, but it's like, man, these guys are getting like national attention, and their head coach is sitting there telling them that they're screwing up left and right.
Josh.
Yeah, so I just have a random question.
Yeah, please.
So we talk about rivalries a lot, and a lot of people try to say that Charlotte is a rival to ECU, and but whatever. Looking at Army, what other rivalries are there outside of Commanders in Chief and I guess Notre Dame probably, but like outside of the, like, what are some of those obscure rivalries that Army has?
Independence for this long kind of prevents that to an extent. There's not the national appeal like Notre Dame has as an independent to be able to have the USC or Stanford or Michigan State. I'll say this though. So Jared had to hear my spiel about it on our podcast the other night. There's something called the Lambert Trophy, which I'm lucky enough to be a voting member on. But every region of the country had its own historic conference. That's all gone by the wayside because we have schools in Coral Gables playing schools in Palo Alto in conference play now. But every region had its own conference. So Midwest Big Ten, the West Coast had the Pacific Coast Conference turned AAWU, turned Pac-12. Southwest, the Southwest Conference, Southeast of the Southeast Conference, Great Plains had the Big 8, became the Big 12, and the Lower Atlantic had the ACC. Well, there was no conference in the Northeast. And so they established a trophy called the Lambert Trophy. It went by the wayside for a couple of years. We're bringing it back. The trophy still exists. It's at Army right now, and we're going to start awarding it again, which we're really excited about. But for the area of the country that had no conference, there was this, the New York sports writers would vote for a champion every year. Well, there were all sorts of, they weren't necessarily official scheduling agreements for Army, but I mean, Army used to play Penn State all the time. They used to play Pitt West Virginia, BC, Rutgers all the time. So I think that's some of those older rivalries are there. Unfortunately, they don't get played nearly enough. And now with Army joining the American, where we basically get, the 8 American games, the 2 CIC games, an FCS game, and then they like what they'd like to do is have one big game elsewhere at an LSU like we had last year, or a Notre Dame like we have this year, or whatever. There's really not room for those regional rivalries. So we're excited about the conference rivalries, but really it's those CIC games.
Now, James, let me ask you this, because this has been a hot button topic here on the Boneyard podcast. And when I say on the Boneyard podcast, I mean coming from me. I don't think anybody else on this podcast really gives a shit. When it was announced that Army was joining the American Athletic Conference, the one thing that stood out to me was the Army Navy game is not going to be it's not going to be a conference game.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. I get it. You want your own thing. You want the weekend after championship weekend. I get it. But let me ask you this. Wouldn't it benefit both schools to still have Army Navy and have the pomp and circumstance that comes with it? Wouldn't it still behoove Army and Navy to be a conference game played in the regular season, and then open up another game in the non-conference slate to schedule a Penn State, a Boston College, another Notre Dame? I'd like to hear your opinion, just because that would be my opinion. But then again,
short answer is no. The long answer is it's just too much damn money, right? You
can keep CBS.
Well, you can keep CBS, but you're keeping CBS when there's an SEC game on ABC and a Big Ten game on NBC, or Notre Dame on NBC, and Fox is carrying a Big Ten game, whatever, right? So the fact that it's on, I mean, we've gone through this in the history of Army Navy, right? Army Navy used to be its own week, and then conference championships got in the way. It was played on the same weekend as conference championships. So then Army Navy moved a week back again. And if you look at the viewership of Army Navy from its own week, right? I mean, I don't know the exact numbers, but like if you look at the chart, it's like its own week, conference championship week, right? And then it goes across, and then it becomes its own week again, and it shoots right back up. And now it gets 7 million, 8 million views. I mean, it's getting twice the viewership of the American Conference Championship game. So it's just too valuable. Moving it to a week of the regular season, pick the biggest amount of money you think a Power 5 program would pay to have Army or Navy come in that extra game, and it's going to pale in comparison to what Army and Navy are getting. I mean, the city pays for them to come. The CBS is paying for the contract. Like it's just a magnitude of money greater than anything the AAC is going to be able to offer. And so as long as that's the case, which I'm not saying it always will be, but as long as that's the case, it's going to stay its own game.
And I get that part. Maybe I'm just salty tonight. I just it just rubs me the wrong way. Like,
yeah, and to be fair, like if I were an ECU fan, I might think the same way. I guess like y'all are the two best teams in the conference this year, and you don't have to play each other in conference play. Bullshit. Yeah. Well, we might have to.
Well, yeah, in the conference champ.
Right. Yeah.
No, I don't. I see where you're coming from, and I'm not saying I wouldn't be in the same boat if I were in your shoes. The trade-off.
This is nothing against like Army.
No, I get it.
If I were in y'all's shoes, I would do the same exact thing.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Here's the trade-off that Mike Oresco made when he signed on Army. The
Mike
trade-off,
enemy of the podcast. Just gonna put that out there.
Okay, I'm not sure the history there, but the trade that he made, which I think was a net good trade for the American, was we don't like, in order to not have bye weeks in November, conference bye weeks in November, we need a 14th team. in order for that to be a profitable team, ESPN needs to sign on, right? Because CBS is guaranteeing the money for Army. You don't have to worry about that part of it. But ESPN would have to sign on to another team joining the American. Well, all of the most valuable, prospects that weren't in the American are in the Sun Belt, which is already an ESPN conference. So who are you going to add? Liberty? I don't think that has the brand value that people want to say it does. So Army was really the only option, right? Army was really the only option that they could bring in that had the guaranteed CBS money for their home games. And ESPN would honestly kind of be happy with, because when we play games at Tulsa that would normally be on ESPN Plus, now all of a sudden Army's good. It's on ESPNU and they're getting viewership. Now it ended up being a blowout, so they didn't get great viewership. But it was still like the fourth most watched Group of 5 game versus Group of 5 game that week. I mean, it's 72,000, which isn't phenomenal, but it's decent. So it made ESPN probably happy, and it came with enough guaranteed money from CBS that it made financial sense.
For sure. And no, I like I said, if I were Army, if I were Navy,
and if I were you guys, I'd be pissed too. Like,
honestly, Jared's speaking for himself. I think Army Navy honestly should be by itself. There's too much tradition there. It's way too long.
It should be a conference game.
We were happy to see Air Force. I mean, I won't speak for Army fans. I would have been happy to see Air Force join, because that saves us a conference game. Like, we would have played Air Force every year in conference.
And see, then that's bullshit.
That game's in November.
Like, but that, you know what I mean? Like, or then then Air Force has to play y'all both in conference play, and y'all don't have to play each other in conference play.
Well, yeah. So that's the other thing, which is we all say, yeah, the CIC is great, but man, I would give up the CIC every freaking year to just beat Navy. Like, if it was if it was a tie every year and Air Force just retained it for 10 straight years, let them do it. Like, I couldn't care less if we beat Navy every year.
I get it.
It's a different thing. It's a different level of rivalry for sure.
Yeah,
and we played Navy enough that one of our probably the guest we've had on the most now, Pete Medhurst, play-by-play voice of Navy, good longtime friend of the podcast. I mean, I always look forward to talking to him. Like, but yeah, I hate playing Navy. I'm not looking forward to this Saturday. Especially
are you guys going to the game by chance?
No, I will actually be going to a concert that night.
Okay.
But no, that it's just a little bit too far of a drive for us.
Well, so I'll say this. If we should be playing you guys every third year, hopefully. 2 out of every 3 years, but every third year at Mikey. When you guys go, please let me know. I'll either make an effort to make it there, or I will. I'll give you all the tips and tricks of how to enjoy your weekend.
Yes, absolutely. At some point, we'll definitely get up there. That is.
I visited West Point. I was probably 10 years old, and I remember like touring, and I went with my grandparents touring. I remember it's just a rainy day in the summer, and then I just remember going to a pizza shop across the street. I feel like
I know the pizza shop. Unfortunately, they've closed down. They closed down after I graduated. That was the best pizza around.
I feel because you could see the campus.
Yes,
right across the street.
Southgate Tavern, and I'm blanking on the. I'll have to do some push-ups later because I'm blanking on the name of the pizza shop. But the pizza shop closed down. I think it was a COVID loss.
Gotcha.
But no, I'll have to give you all the bars to go to, all the places to see, and you should. I mean, I'm glad you went and saw it, but game day there is a cool experience. Like, Sports Illustrated rated them the number 3 venue of the 20th century. Like, it's going there for the cadet, the brigade review, the cadet review, which is what I always get to miss the march on or the marching before that morning because I was doing radio stuff. So I named my original radio show Brigade Review because I was always missing it. But seeing the cadet review that morning, seeing the cadets jump, the parachute team jump into the stadium, watching them march on, it's a fun experience. They're always noon kickoffs, so tailgating happens after the game, win or lose. We booze. So you can go up there, have some fun, enjoy a few drinks after the game, and go on your merry way.
Love that. Yeah, we gotta get up there, Artie.
Yeah. On the Hudson too, absolutely, man.
Oh, it's beautiful.
I know it's beautiful.
Fall on the Hudson. Winter's not fun. I'll say, we call it the great period for a reason.
I know. Yeah.
Winter sucks, but fall is gorgeous. There are very few places I would rather be than fall in the Hudson River Valley.
We got to get up there. We try to make it an effort to go to 1 or 2 away games this year. We've already expended our 2 with Liberty and Charlotte, but maybe we'll get up there. We got to.
Yeah, I mean, it's bucket list.
We had a blast at Navy the time we went.
Mm-hmm.
I never want to go back, but
it was fun.
It was a blast. But cool, James. Well, thank you. I know we've kept you so much longer than I told you we were going to, but I feel like this has been a great conversation, man. Best of luck to Army after this Saturday. That's just kind of don't have any luck this weekend. Tell our listeners where they can find your content and how they can follow you.
So I'm James. You can find me at Brigade Review. I am part of a conglomerate of 5 guys that cover Army football and all Army sports throughout the season. But as for football, so you can go to, it's like ASFOR, as for football. It's an inside West Point thing. Asforfootball.com, at asforfootball on socials. We do a podcast every week wherever you listen to your podcasts. If the ECU fans listening want to listen to our take on ECU, Army, As for Football, Army Football Show, you'll find it on Spotify. Just search for Army Football, and we'd love to have you. And Jared, going forward, we're playing you guys 2 every 3 years, whether it's you or Artie. We'll get you guys on the podcast.
I had a blast yesterday.
Awesome.
I was scrolling through my picks. I didn't know y'all were going to do picks. I was scrolling through them, and then I was like, man, they skipped me. Y'all, I'm going to have to get back on.
They skip me too. I'm not usually on that podcast.
I was like,
I write the previews, but if you guys want my preview, again, not shameless plug.
Plug your shit, man.
Yeah, asforfootball.com. You'll see the East Carolina preview up there. If you want my take, and I don't pull punches. You want my honest take on East Carolina, go take a look at it if you want an Army perspective.
For sure. And you don't have to stay around, but if you want to make picks, we're going to do picks here in a minute. So feel free to
do it.
Cool. Well, on that note, Artie, walk the plank. Do you have a walk the plank? This is James. This is our version of the Blue Falcon Award.
Okay.
I don't have a walk the plank this week. I'm not mad at nobody this week outside of East Carolina University, but I'm not mad at nobody this week. So I don't have a walk the plank.
Is walk the plank only for ECU, or is it anyone in college football?
It's anyone in
any sport,
any sport related thing you want to talk about.
Okay.
Josh,
my walk the plank this week has to be the number 48 Alex Bowman team. Good job at not having enough weight on your car. They give you 1%. That's about 17 pounds to be off, and you were underweight after. How do you do that? Lost his spot in the playoffs because he ended up finishing 38th instead of in the top 10. Joey Logano on even number years. It's the prophecy. He might win a championship again. Walk the plank, number 48, Alex Bowman.
I feel like I had a good one. I'll tell myself to walk the plank. Adding too many legs to a parlay. I had a 7-leg parlay that missed on 2 of them. I needed Bijan Robinson to have 1 more reception. And I need Kirk Cousins to throw for 25 more yards. $10 to win like $350. And that one hurt, especially since Artie and I were there live. Yep. I was, and honestly, it was a Falcons pick that did me in. But I'll tell myself to walk the plank. Yeah, James, do you have a walk the plank?
Yeah, I was gonna say something. I have been rudely paying. I'm a Yankees fan, because I'm from North Jersey. But I was literally about to say Aaron Judge because he sucks this postseason. And as I was prepping that, I've been really watching the Yankees game, and Aaron Judge hit a home run. So I can't say that.
6-2 right now, Yankees. They up 1-0.
Yeah. Well, it was 5-2 until we got the Judge bomb.
That's a walk the plank. The Philadelphia Phillies. Y'all said I'm a Braves fan. Y'all said you said, oh, we want the 5 days off. Oh, that doesn't matter. Y'all just making excuses the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Nah. Y'all went in there and y'all got worked.
Yeah.
You got worked.
I will pivot. I'll pivot from Judge. I'm gonna go with Ryan Day. If you haven't seen, I've been drinking from my whiskey glass, and it's hard to see on the screen, but it's my 2023 Michigan National Championships drinking glass. I'm a huge Michigan fan.
Already is too.
Yes,
hey, go blue, baby.
Go blue, baby.
So just watching, man, like I really do, like, as an Army fan, I really do root for Navy to go 11-1 every year. Like, I hope the best for them. Air Force, they make it really, really hard to do, but I root for them to go 10-2 every year. Mm-hmm. Ohio State, I hope they lose every fucking game. Like, when Ryan Day loses, it makes me so happy on the inside.
Just the big ass rat on the side.
Yeah.
Ryan Day. This is the big ass rat.
That's what I said about NC State 2 weeks ago. Who'd they lose to? NC State lost 2 weeks ago, and I was like, I can't even be happy about NC State losing because we got dog walked by Charlotte.
I like watching NC State losing too, for probably a completely different reason.
Oh, what is it?
Army's athletic director from, I don't know, before our current one. Our current one's Mike Buddy. He's phenomenal. The one before did one thing that I agreed with, which was do anything possible to hire Jeff Monken. Other than that, I pretty much disagreed with every decision that he made. And he's now the athletic director at NC State, Bucor.
Boo.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm in the same boat.
If it makes you, I mean, a former Kay Yao, the former athletic director at NC State, is an ECU alum. And they want to just keep talking shit about us, but whatever. All right. Gambling corner.
Let's do it.
Josh, I added some picks because I had some hot takes for this week. We usually go with 4 games. I think I added 2 or 3.
It's a good weekend.
So
good college football weekend.
Last weekend was great. This weekend's really, really good.
Yep.
What we got first? Tulsa at Temple. Temple's minus 2.5. Over under 52.5. This is a tough game to pick. Artie, you want to go first?
Was that Tulsa at Temple?
Tulsa at Temple.
Ooh, this seems like a battle of the suck to me. Look, you gotta choose the lesser of two evils. So I'm probably gonna go Tulsa on this. What's the over under?
52.5.
52.5. Give me the under. Give me the under at 52.5. Give me who's favorite? Tulsa's favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Give me Tulsa.
No, Temple. Temple's 2.5. Yeah, Temple's 2.5 home favorite. What do you mean?
What do you mean?
I'm taking Tulsa. And give me the under. I don't know too much about either one of these teams. I just know they're both not good. That's all.
Army's played both. I'm taking Tulsa money line.
See, I'm taking Tulsa money line. I mean, yeah, I'm taking Tulsa money line. I'm not picking Temple to win anything. Also, James, just so I know we didn't send you anything. The games that we've picked, I've put into the chat.
Oh, okay, cool.
So that way you can be prepared for them. But yeah, I'm taking Tulsa.
That over under though.
That over under.
They're both coming off bye weeks.
They
have ample time to prepare.
I really want to.
It still sucks.
I really want to take that over, but I'm gonna take it. Tulsa on the over.
Tulsa and the over. All right. Well, my pick is Temple and the under. mainly because they're at home. They're home favorites. And
At home.
At home, Army played
Financial.
Temple at home with 9,000 fans, and
Not even that.
6,000 of them were Army fans.
And the other 3,000 worked for Lincoln Financial.
Right, exactly.
But they're not getting anywhere close to 52 points.
I don't know. I've kept up with them enough, but like I ain't watching anything Tulsa Temple until we play them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a sicko, but I'm not that much of a sicko.
Yeah.
All right. Next, we got Charlotte going to number 25 in the nation, Navy. Navy is a 16.5 point favorite, and the over-under is 55.5. James, I'll go ahead and let you break the ice on this one.
Charlotte over.
Charlotte to cover or Charlotte to win outright?
Charlotte figured out their run game against you guys, and I think Navy's defense is not what it was last year. I think Charlotte covers. I think Navy probably wins. Charlotte covers, and they both score a lot of points.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. I'm going to take Charlotte to cover, Navy to win outright, and I'm going to take the over.
All right.
I hate to beat a dead horse, but yeah, no, I definitely think that 16.5 is a lot. I think Charlotte will cover that. Navy outright because Navy's just a better team. And I will take the over.
Do it, Josh.
You know, you all know I have a history. Georgia Tech week 0, right? Georgia Tech week 0. I mean, I had Washington over Michigan.
Don't tell me
right?
you're doing this. I
had Georgia Tech over Duke, right? I mean, I've made some good plays this year. I've made some good plays. This one's gonna be one where the crowd is right. Navy outright, Charlotte to cover because 16.5 is kind of wild. I don't think Navy's that good defensively, and then the over because neither one of them will probably keep up with the other on offense. So next up, we got Florida State at Duke. This is the Dookie Bowl, literally. Florida State is a 3.5 point road dog. The over-under is 42.5. Jared.
I'm taking Duke to cover. And I'm taking the under.
But outright.
I mean, Duke covers.
Oh, Duke covers. Yeah,
outright.
You're right.
Sorry.
I honestly think Duke only being favored by 3.5 is kind of disrespectful.
I do too.
Florida State is cheeks. Like Duke's gonna. I think Duke's gonna cover that easily because they're a pretty decent team. So Duke outright, obviously Duke to cover. Yeah, give me the over. I'll take the over on it.
The over? 42.5. Yeah, 42.5 is kind of low. It's kind of low. James?
I hate to bring this back up because we're beating a dead horse, but I'm looking at Duke's schedule right now because I'm not prepared for this in the slightest. But I honestly think Army performs better than Duke with the schedule they've played. Like, there's not one game where I think Army would have won by fewer points. Duke has had a very weak schedule. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm a Florida State homer. I will admit my bias, but I think Florida State finally does something good this year.
Okay.
I'll be the odd one out.
I'm here for it.
I'm right with you, James, because in my mind, Florida State has gone off of everyone's radar. It's all in-house now. It's all internal. Nobody's really talking about him anymore. Duke has one loss, Duke has one loss. They're not really as in it as they were. The hype has kind of died down. It's at Duke. Homecoming's coming and gone. Basketball season's right around the corner. The focus is on football right now for Florida State, and Florida State gets this one outright in the upset. And the under, though.
Oh, yeah. I'll go under 2. Yeah.
42.5. Taking
Under 42.5? Okay.
Yes.
That's
These-
three of us that
These
took
offenses
under.
are so bad.
They're terrible.
Like, they're horrible.
I mean, that's true. And I know DJ got benched. So, I mean,
Mhm.
Yeah, and then this game's on Friday night, isn't it?
Yeah, short
Yes.
week. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's under.
I can see it. I still take it over.
Yeah. I'm taking the under for sure on this game.
All right. Number 6, Miami on the road to Louisville. Miami is only a 4.5-point favorite, and the spread is 61.5. James.
Miami by 4.5. Man, that is tough. Louisville just won a good one last week, didn't they? Against somebody.
Yeah.
I forget. I'm forgetting who, but at Miami beat Cal on the road just barely.
Yeah,
I'm gonna Pitt too.
I'm gonna buy the
Who's
points.
undefeated? Oh no, I mean 5-1. Excuse me.
Who is?
Pitt.
Pitt's good. I no disrespect to Pitt. What did was Miami coming off an off week, or did they play last week?
Yeah, they had a bye week last week.
They had a bye week. Yeah, I'll buy the points. I'm gonna go Miami, and the over under 61.5. I'm gonna go Miami in the under.
Miami in the under. All right. Artie.
Yeah, look, I low key like Louisville. I like when Louisville's good. Even going back to the Lamar Jackson days, I like when Louisville's good. But this is just one of those games that they lose. Like they just kind of lose to better teams in the last few years. They haven't been able to really get over the hump. I don't have belief that they're going to get over the hump now. And I think Miami actually has a legit quarterback now. It's not one of those situations where Miami's a good team and they have a subpar quarterback. Miami's a good team and they have an NFL prospect at quarterback. So I got Miami in this. I really am flirting with the over, but I'm going to take the under.
All right. Here's my thing. I've said it for I think the better part of a month now that I think Miami is suspect. They've been bailed out of their last 2 games against Virginia Tech. That's who I thought was Pitt. They got bailed out against Virginia Tech, got bailed out against Cal. Look, ACC refs, we all know what goes on there. I don't know. I think they're going to get got eventually, and I think it's this weekend. I'm with Artie. I like Louisville. I just do. I think that eventually Miami is going to get got. Look, the ACC is some cheeks. The ACC is not very good across the board. Miami is and Clemson looks a lot better than they did week 1. I'll give them that. I think Clemson at this point is a better team than Miami, but I'm taking Louisville here outright, and I'm going to take the over in this game. I think there's going to be a lot of points.
The over. Okay. So I guess the biggest question here is, do you believe that SMU and Notre Dame are as good as Miami?
No.
Or is Miami much better of those 3? Because here recently, Louisville has played both SMU and Notre Dame. SMU was just on the 5th, and it was a home loss by 7 points. They lost on the road by 7 points to Notre Dame. I think Louisville's had enough losing.
Exactly. Come on now.
They've had enough losing. They've just had enough losing. So I'm going to go Louisville here. And this will be Miami's only blemish of the regular season for the rest of the year. This is it.
So that means they still get to the conference championship game.
Still gets the conference championship game, and they still win it.
I mean, Miami. Talking about Miami's like strength of schedule. I mean, yeah, they played Florida. Florida is looking like they're gonna end up having to fire Billy Napier. I mean, if
Florida's
they,
competitive though. I mean, Florida hasn't just fallen off a cliff. They're competitive.
but people are
You got
calling
a freshman starting quarterback, man. Chill out.
but people are calling for their head coach's head, just like we
Well,
are.
yeah, I mean, I think Billy should have gone last year.
But looking at it, Miami's remaining schedule, yeah, I think this is their only blemish. They play Florida State at home next week, play Duke at home,
should be a win.
On the road at Georgia Tech, Wake at home, and then they had to go on the road at Syracuse. They got a cakewalk schedule.
Now, I will say though, Syracuse, Georgia Tech, Duke are all scrappy teams. So like there could be a blemish there. There could be a blemish because those are scrappy. Those are the teams that you're like you don't really think about, but they'll give you some problems.
Right. I think they lose this week.
I also want to make clear that I am choosing the under on this game as well. So now on to our national games. We got number 5, Georgia, at number 1, Texas. Texas. The wrong T. Texas is a 3.5-point favorite, and the over/under is 55.5. I'm gonna take this one first. Because I think I have a real simple take. Texas wins this game. Like I said, preseason, Georgia's losing 2 to 3 games this season. This is game number 2. Texas, go ahead and get the outright. And I think they cover the spread. I think Texas watches Alabama's tape and just kind of puts a little bit extra on it. Offensively, I don't think both teams can score. So 55.5 isn't bad, but I'm going under.
Okay.
Artie.
Man, what a matchup in Austin too. Daryl K. Roy is gonna be jumping. Look, I agree with Josh. I think Georgia is more suspect than they have been in years previous. That doesn't mean they still can't make a playoff. Doesn't mean they're still not great. But they're not the juggernaut that they used to be. And this Texas team, they look different and they feel different. Like they legitimately feel like
this feels like vintage Texas.
This feels like an 05 Texas with Vince Young. Like they feel legitimate. Like this is like one of those Texas teams that actually looks like they probably should win a natty. So yeah, I'm gonna take Texas. I'm gonna take the over on this one. I think there's gonna be some points scored. But yeah, Texas outright, and I'm gonna take the over.
What about the points? Texas covers?
Texas covers. 3.5. I think Texas covers. Yeah.
James?
Not by much, but I think they cover.
This is to me the biggest coin flip. Like this is Georgia lives and dies on whether or not Carson Beck decides to be a Power 5 quarterback that day.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Like against Alabama, he was a dog shit quarterback for half of football, and then in the second half, he's like, "No, I'm going to be an actual quarterback today." And they came back and they actually took the lead for however long it was, 27 seconds. Texas just has more consistency. Don't get me wrong, if Carson Beck is on for 4 quarters of football, Georgia is going to win and they're going to win by 2 touchdowns. But if Carson Beck is his normal self where he's inconsistent, Texas is going to cover. And so to me, it's not like the line is irrelevant. It's just, is Carson Beck going to show up? And I think that he's not going to show up enough against Texas's defense. So I don't care if it's 3.5 points or 11.5 points. I'm taking Texas, and I'll take the over.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. I'm going to take Texas. I'm going to take them to cover, and I'm going to take the over. I think Texas is by and far the best team in the country right now.
Artie, did you say over or under on this one?
Over.
I'm sorry. Over. I'm sorry. Internet.
Yeah, he said over.
Okay. I was saying internet glitched right as soon as you did it. All right. Next game. The real national game of the week because it is the third Saturday in October. Bama, number 7. At number 11, Tennessee, always open. Alabama is a 2.5-point road favorite on this one.
That's absurd.
The world just gets crazier and crazier. And the over-under is 56.5. James, you want to take this one first?
Yeah, I'm reminded of a Henry Kissinger quote about the Iran-Iraq war. It's a shame they both can't lose. Oh man, I'm gonna take Alabama. I'll buy the points and I'll take the over. I think these are just two explosive offenses.
Okay. Artie.
To me, this has very much to do with it being in Knoxville. This is in Knoxville, not Tuscaloosa, which is why I'm going to choose what I'm choosing. I'm obviously going to choose Tennessee here. My fiance is from Alabama. My soon-to-be father-in-law and mother-in-law both graduated from the University of Alabama. So I take great pride, honestly, in watching them lose, to be completely honest. Yeah, I got Tennessee, Rocky Top in Knoxville. And yes, these are explosive offenses. I'm taking it over. And yeah, give me Tennessee.
All right, Jared.
Yeah, Alabama's frauds. I don't know. The last 2 weeks, Alabama showed me a lot. I don't know. They beat Georgia. The last 2 weeks of Alabama football have given me even more questions about Georgia. Which, I mean, James, you gave a perfect synopsis of it. But to me, is there just no good football teams in college football outside of maybe Texas and Oregon? I don't know, because Alabama looks like absolute donkey crap the last 2 weeks. They lost to Vanderbilt. That's the only thing that made us losing to Charlotte. Nobody was looking at us like that on the national stage, but other teams around the conference stopped paying attention to us losing to Charlotte like that because everybody else was getting beat, especially Alabama getting beat at Vanderbilt. Alabama should have lost at home last week against South Carolina. South Carolina's a really good team. I'm still not, like I said, I'm not sold on Alabama. Look, I put this game in here. I'm going to see Morgan Wallen on Saturday night in Bank of America Stadium. And I just want an electric show. I want an electric show. Give me Tennessee, good old Rocky Top, and I think Alabama's just going to be once again just going to be exposed.
Over under.
Over, undoubtedly over. I would probably even take the over at 61.
So I believe that Texas is the new Bama, and Steve Sarkisian is the next Nick Saban.
Really?
But
that's a big statement, man. He got to win like 3 or 4 Natties before we start making that kind of statement.
Hey, the pathway is clear. I also believe that Tennessee will be Texas's Bama. And Tennessee is going to come out and do what they did to Oklahoma to Bama. And so I've got Tennessee just whacking Bama, and it will be the over. I believe Jalen Milroe will have one of the worst performances of his career. And I mean, that could still be a very great performance because he's been good his whole career. But I think that this is just one of those games where Tennessee just floors it.
There we go. All right. last game, really the game of the nation, right? Like the national game of the week.
Yeah, ESPN2.
East Carolina versus the whole ass Army.
The whole Army. They're finally coming after the Pirates, right? ECU traveling up to West Point as a 14.5-point road dog. The over-under is 51.5. I'll go first. I'll let y'all decide the rest. ECU wins, covers, and we hit the over.
I love it, Josh.
You're fired, Josh.
I love the. I mean, man, I love it. Like I picked Army to go like 17-0 this year, so we're winning the Super Bowl. So I love it, Josh.
Somebody has to. Somebody has to.
James, I was just going to tell you. So we had our first ever lock of the week on the podcast leading up to Charlotte. We all said that ECU was going to cover. I think it was like 8.5 points.
Yeah.
ECU is going to cover 8.5 points, and the over of like I want to say it was like 52 was going to hit. Charlotte hit the over on their own, and then we got our asses completely whacked. So that was our first lock where we're all on the same page. So
I'll be honest, man. If Army was playing in Texas this week and the over under was 73, I'd take Army money line in the over. Like I respect it, Josh.
Yeah,
I respect it, dude.
Shoot or shoot.
Hey, somebody has to have something different for the parlay to hit, right?
All right, Artie.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had the confidence of Josh. I don't. I will say this. I think James said it honestly perfectly earlier when he talked about time of possession and the hurry up offense with ECU. I think if we're going to have a chance to compete in this game, the offense has got to get slowed down a little bit. It can't be a like 15 to 20 minute time of possession to Army's 45 to 50 minutes. That's just going to be an absolute blowout, ass kicking, not going to be a competitive ball game. If we can actually manage to not only pick up sustainable drives and first downs, but score not field goals but touchdowns, this can be a competitive game. ECU still has the pieces. ECU still has the talent. This really should not be a blowout in any way, shape, or form, if we're being honest. But I am going to take Army in this game. That 14.5, I'm going to say ECU covers. I'm going to say ECU covers. We're going to show some pride in this game. ECU is going to cover that. But I'm taking the over, and I'm going to take an Army to win outright.
All right, James, I'll let you take the next one.
So I'm not sure if you boys realize this, but Army is 6-0 against the spread this year. I personally think this is the most, despite the fact that we were favored by 27 last week, I think that this is the most preposterous spread we've seen yet. I think Vegas keeps being like, well, Army keeps winning by way more than we think that they will, so we're just going to make it a little bit more ridiculous each week. Yeah. And so each week it gets slightly more ridiculous. That being said, I'm taking the under because there are two ways this game is close. One of them is that it's a shootout, and I just don't see that. Army Munkin's not going to let this become a shootout. And ECU's defense is too good to let it become a shootout. So I'm taking the under. The other way it's close is if ECU gets off to a fast start. So really 14.5, I think now it's up to, you guys are giving me a generous line. I think it's up to like 16. Like you can get ECU plus 16 on some books right now. It's between 14.5 and 16. It depends on the book. 14.5. I think I'm going to take Army just because I think like until Army shows me they're not going to get out to a fast start, I'm going to assume that they will. And if they get out to a fast start, they're going to cover 14.5. The only way they don't is if they put in their third stringers and ECU gets a couple of garbage time touchdowns at the end of the game. If ECU gets out to a fast start, ECU will cover easily. But until Army shows me that they're gonna not get out to a fast start, which it very well could be this week, I'm gonna take Army minus 14.5.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on this. Like the last 2 days, I've thought about this pick multiple times, like more times than I'm willing to admit, honestly. Okay, I agree, and part of me wants to say like, okay, I think that the talent is there. ECU, we're halfway through the season. ECU eventually puts it together. Is it this weekend? It's gonna happen. Is it this weekend? I don't know. If it were going to be this weekend, it would be a storybook way to do it for this team to finally gel and come together and put together a full 60 minutes. They haven't done that all year. But with that being said, I can only go by what I've seen. And I don't have the faith in ECU to win outright. I do have the faith that ECU, especially after players-only meeting, which I believe UAB also had a players-only meeting before playing Army, so maybe that doesn't matter at all. But ECU players-only meeting, I think the team may be a little bit more bought in. Hey, you're playing on ESPN2. You're playing a top 25 team. It's easy to get up for those games. It's not as easy to get up to play UNC Charlotte, UNCC, whatever you want to call them, UNC Concord. I'm going to say Army outright, East Carolina to cover, and I'm going to take the under because I don't see ECU putting up 30 points in this game or 25 points in this game. I think we're going to see a tighter game, kind of like what James was saying. So that's where I'm going with this. All right, hell of an episode, boys. Hell of an episode. James, appreciate you so much for sticking around. It's been
Thanks
a pleasure.
for having me, boys. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Anytime you want somebody to come in and talk shit about UCF or NC State or Virginia Tech or any, I mean, I felt like
that team down south, because fuck them too.
Yeah, that team down in Concord.
No, I wasn't talking about that team down south.
Oh, you're talking about
our team down south.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, Artie. I unlike some Army Navy fans, I hope the best. I'm happy that they are 6-0. It is good for our brand. What's good for the goose is good for the gander.
He's talking about Ohio State.
Oh, you're talking about Ohio State.
Yeah.
No, fuck those guys.
Yeah. I was like, no.
Okay. No, I
Navy wasn't even on Army. It wasn't even on Artie's radar.
Okay.
Yeah, no. I wasn't
Well,
even.
hey, I sincerely hope. Well, I hope that you have me on again because ECU turns it around and there's an Army ECU conference championship game. But if there's not, and you have after the regular season episode and Army's in the mix for a conference championship game, I would love to come back on if you guys are doing an episode that week.
Hey, we'll do an episode that week. Maybe we just get you and our boy Pete on same time.
If it's Army Navy, I'd love to. Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun.
That would be fun. Absolutely.
I mean, yeah, we love us some Pete. Hey, and then honestly, that would be Pete back-to-back weeks because we play them last week of the season, which is
nice,
brutal. And they just announced that game's going to be on Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, so Black Friday at noon. So
at noon.
Oh,
no,
awful.
Where's the game? Where's the game?
It's in Greenville.
You guys, I'll say if I were a non-Army Navy team hosting Army Navy that weekend, and I had to pick a time that was best suited for an upset, I would pick Friday at noon. Or I'd pick Thursday at noon. But if it had to be Friday, I'd pick Friday at noon.
Yeah, I don't want to play them at all.
Yeah. It's not gonna be good for us either, though. So,
but no, we'll definitely come back on. I really enjoyed y'all's show last night. It was a lot of fun. I recommend any of our listeners, if you want to just listen to college football talk, go check it out. Ask for Football. Check out James's podcast, The Brigade Review. Shout out James once again. Really appreciate it. And then we're gonna be done here. So just want to wrap this thing up. Do some business. Make sure you follow, subscribe at Boneyard Podcast, at the Boneyard Podcast on TikTok, because TikTok took our name away. At Boneyard Podcast on YouTube. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star review. Artie, if they don't leave a 5-star review, what can they do?
they can walk the damn plank, baby.
Damn right. All right. Leave us a 5-star review. If you do, you're a friend of the podcast for life. And then, that's all we got. Let's go beat Army. Until next week, y'all. Artie?
Hey, great episode as always, Pirate Nation. We love you. We appreciate you tuning in. Wash your hands, wash your butts. Deuce.
Peace.